Cliches retire, we set them free, shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.
Hello, welcome to Unconventional Wisdom, about conventional wisdom. I have Albert Bramanti as my guest today, and he has an expertise in working with performing artists. He's going to introduce himself in a minute. He's also written a book called Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt, Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. But here's the thing, friend, that whether you are a performing artist or you are a business person, there are lessons to be learned from Albert, and I can't wait for him to share that. Albert, will you please start by introducing yourself?
Hi, Kim, and thank you for inviting me on. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Albert Bramanti. I have been working as a talent agent for the past 22 years. I work with professional actors for film, TV, theater, commercial, print, and voiceover. I also have a background in psychology, and I've been a psychology professor for 21 years as well. And I love what I do. It's something that really drives home. And as you mentioned, I wrote a book last year, which I'm really happy about. And I think it has a lot of great information for artists and performers of all types and just general information.
Absolutely. I really do believe that. And you and I had a kind of pre-conversation, and I'm really impressed. And I think there's a lot for those of us who are not in the performing arts to really learn from your experience.
Yes.
All right, Albert, here is your random question. If you could only eat at one restaurant for the rest of your life, what restaurant would it be?
I would have to say one that I grew up with, and it was called Spirito's. It was a local Italian eatery, and it was like one of our family's favorite growing up. So I would say that would be my go-to favorite restaurant.
Okay. If the question were, what kind of cuisine would it be? Would it be Italian, or would you choose something else?
Probably Italian food, like pasta.
There you go. I'm a fan. Although, if you just asked me like what my favorite food is, I would say sushi. I don't know that I would want to eat sushi every day, and it probably would make me sick. But I do love sushi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think where I would love to start this conversation is, what is some conventional wisdom that actors or performers think is going to get them success? Or you could even answer the question for your own business.
Yeah. I think that the major thing of success is persistence and tenacity.
Right. And what was the advice you got versus what you've actually needed?
The advice that I've gotten was very simplified. This is a tough business. And I was mainly discouraged a lot by some people not to do this. Especially if I had a background in psychology, and I had a lot of people tell me, like, why are you doing this? Why are you working with art when you could be doing so many other things? I'm not sure that would be the best advice I would give to somebody else, but I would think for me, again, it's just resistance, tenacity. Some actors, I think when they're younger, like just graduating out of school, they're passionate about the industry. But I think sometimes I run into issues where they expect to get major success right away. And this can happen. There are cases, there are examples where that's happened, but it's not as common. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of persistence, and a lot of hard work.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some luck, maybe right place, right time. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Right place, right time, the good connections that you have. It's a cliche, but it's true. It's who you know a lot of times too. So having good business relationships are important. So that, I would say, is definitely a major factor for success in the industry, is having those connections, having those contacts.
That is so true in the business community as well, right? And really networking and honing in and building your networking and relationship skills is really important.
100%. And that's also another thing too that's important for actors is the ability to network is very powerful. And that might not be necessarily taught right away. That's an important skill to have because the show business community, it's very supportive. So actors support one another. So I think it's important for actors to network with other actors too.
So that is a very interesting point. It comes up very much in the business community. I'm a business coach, right? And it would be very easy for me to say, oh, I don't want to network with other coaches. Like they're the competition. In the business community, it is so important to network with people who do similar things than you do.
And I would say almost like that would be a bit of unconventional advice to what you were asking or
That's right.
in general.
That's right.
Like even for ourselves, like in our community, there's a strong network of other fellow agents. Now, yes, we technically are in competition with one another, but we're also very supportive. We look out for one another. So, for example, I don't want to spend too much time on the negative side, but let's say you have an actor who complaining about an agent publicly, another agent knows about it. We will warn each other. We will say, hey, just to give you a heads up, this is what's been said. And I will not work with another actor who thinks negatively about another agent. It's just not good business practice. Right. So that would be something that I would say just to network with other actors, other people, even if they're directly in competition of you, because you can build each other up.
So it really goes to another piece, which I do think you have to be pretty confident in yourself to be able to network with somebody else who does what you do and still end up feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, we build each other up. That's the whole thing.
And if you find toxic people who don't do that, stay away from them.
Exactly. And I always say it's important to watch a company you keep. Because even the most established coaches will tell you the statement that goes, show me your people you hang out with, and I can tell you who you are. And so you want to hang out with people that build you up, not that aren't going to be negative and shoot you down.
Right. We also talk a lot about being somebody who can genuinely be happy for somebody else and their success.
100%.
Right? Without it being a reflection on you. Like, I think that is really a skill that a lot of people have to build, which is, oh yeah, I'm so excited that you landed that client. I'm so excited that you generated that much revenue. I'm so excited for you that you landed that ideal job. Because so many people's reaction is, I'm jealous. Even if they don't say that out loud, right? Oh, that should have been me. I wish that was me. You're human, and that's okay. But I think to be able to acknowledge, yeah, that thought went through my head, but it's really not about me.
Exactly. And it's okay to sometimes even temporarily say, I wish I had that. There's a bit of a letdown or a disappointment. But be supportive because it will happen when you put yourself out there. It was never meant to be for you at that moment. And just be happy for everybody. It puts, it's so much easier on you. It makes it so much easier on our body and our mind and spirit when we're happy than negative. It takes much more energy and time to be negative.
Right. And honestly, it is what it is. So there really is nothing that you're feeling bad about the situation it's going to be helpful.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because something came in fact, literally, I was working with a client this morning. This conversation came up about being able to look at a situation where there was a disappointment where things did not go the way that we wanted them to, and to be able to look at your own part of the situation, right? No blame, no shame, no judgment, but to be able to look at it and say, okay, there were some lessons here that I need to learn from this. I could have done this better, handled this better without taking more responsibility than is yours, but taking the responsibility that is your part.
Yes. I often think responsibility and blame are two different things, two different sides of the plate. Even in situations where somebody completely might have did you wrong, there's some element where you are not to blame, but responsible for that. Because maybe you let your guard down. Maybe you didn't pay attention to some of the red flags. There were a couple of things that weren't adding up before the main incident happened. And you overlooked, and which is fine because, you want to see the good people. So I think responsibility is a key, taking responsibility.
And again, I would agree with you 100%. And I think that the underlying piece of this, in order to do it with appropriate boundaries, is to really have enough confidence in yourself to be able to say, I'm human. There's a lesson for me to learn here. And some of it is about my own behavior. So, I'm just going to dig in. I'm going to learn that lesson so that I can do it better next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to another piece of this. As a successful actor, what's one thing that people assume that they've got figured out that behind the scenes you hear them wrestle with?
It's the self-doubt. I've heard of even A-listers sometimes when they finish their scene during filming or on stage and they walk out and they still are questioning, did I make the right choices? Could I have done this better? And I heard this even from a pro who's been a household name, who said the same thing, that when the camera stopped rolling and he's kicking himself like, I should have done this better. I should have done it better. So I think the self-doubt makes us human in a sense.
And let me ask you, because you have literally written a book on self-doubt. Tell us a little bit more about when you were writing the book. Expand on that a little bit and then tell us what some of the recommendations that you have around that.
There's so many different factors. I could probably do an entire series on this topic, but I can tell you that a lot of it starts from our childhood. The parenting we receive, the message we receive from our parents, from society, from our teachers. So it starts there. But usually that's where a lot of it begins. That's where the root of self-doubt comes in. Our parents have really great intentions for us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the most messaging suitable for it. So that's where it starts. And usually when I do my research, I looked at self-esteem. I looked at a concept of self-efficacy, which is the belief in your ability to do something. So that's what really self-efficacy is about. I looked at the personality factors. Like the major one that I use is a well-known model in psychology called the 5-factor model, or the big 5 traits, which are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Think of the word ocean as an acronym. And then I looked at fear of success and fear of failure. So a lot of those avenues all were ripe areas for research. And what influenced this book was my doctoral dissertation, which was on self-behavior of performing artists. And so when I was writing my book, I just followed the outline that I did for my dissertation. A lot of the research I used for my dissertation was all newer research that was done in between that time. So I was always considered a thinker. So for me, research is important. And I wanted to treat the knowledge with respect because I feel like that's important for me.
I think you brought up a really interesting point, which is fear of success. Because I think that doesn't get enough attention. And it's a big one.
100%.
Right. Where does it show up in the clients that you work with, and how do you help them through it?
So with fear of success, which is very interesting because it's not a well-known fear, but it's still guiding our behavior, it's still guiding our outcome. So one thing it really boils down to is fear of change. As human beings, we don't like change, and the biggest addiction is comfort. So we like staying comfort. We want our life to change, but we don't want to put the work in for that to happen. So with success, sometimes changes, and also more responsibility and identity shift. When you become successful, there's a lot of pressure sometimes for actors. Because let's say you land that role in that Broadway show, or you land that lead in a TV series, or lead in a film. What's going to now happen is you're going to have a lot of extra time. So you're going to have a lot of responsibilities. You're going to have a lot of pressure on you to succeed. And so that's going to add up over time. And relationships may change. And typically when you're trying to juggle a few things, it can really be a conflict. So you have these internal conflicts happening that you may not even realize are happening. And what's the best way to keep you safe, which our subconscious mind protects us? I just won't be successful, and therefore I'll be safe. And it was initially brought up as talked about in the 40s and 50s, particularly around the feminist movement, with Karen Horney, one of the well-known psychologists of the 20th century, who stated that at that time, a lot of young women were going into the workforce, but then also juggling being a mom. And there's a lot of conflict there, so it's safer to just not be successful. We don't have to worry about juggling that. So with actors, again, relationships may change. Things may change, so it can be scary.
And I think we can relate the same thing to the business community around either getting promotions if you have a job, or exceeding your revenue goals, creating a bigger business than you ever thought possible. And I think probably the message maybe that we want to give people here is the fear of success is a thing. It is something that a lot of people don't recognize it when it's happening. So just you as a listener, be aware that this is a thing. And if you find yourself sabotaging your own success, then it's something that you should look at.
Yeah, and there's also something that call it unconventional is there's a fear of money.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people might be listening and thinking, what are we talking about? I want to make money. Consciously, you do. Yes. But if you grew up, let's say, with messages in your family that money is the root of all evil, which is actually misquoted, because the love of money that was initially said was the root of all evil, not money. So if you come into money is bad, or money is dirty, or money is lazy, you're going to adopt that, internalize that belief. Even if you don't realize it's happening, you're not a bad person. You're not a sleazy person. So what's the way to do that? I won't have money.
That's right. Yeah. What's so interesting is that I literally just did this workshop for some very successful people who make a lot of money. And I think it's fascinating because people think, oh, if you make money, then you got it all figured out and you don't need to work on your money story. And that is just not true. And I do think we do hear about famous people who end up broke, right?
Yes.
Make a lot of money, and it's people who haven't worked through their relationship with money separate from how they grew up. Or now that you have money and your family doesn't.
Now you're going to get all of this people with handouts coming at you.
Right.
I need this, I need that. So there's a lot of things that a lot of responsibilities that are going to come up. So I think that's really important to consider in a sense. And you mentioned celebrities, it's also lottery winners sometimes. I was watching a documentary a while back and that profiled a lot of lottery winners who became 7 figures overnight. And it was a nightmare for them.
Right. And here's the other thing, at least if you earn the money by doing a job, maybe to some extent it's easier to justify by telling yourself a story that you earned the money, even if it might feel uncomfortable for you. But a lottery winner, the money just appears because they bought a ticket, right? And it's totally random. I don't think many people really think if you buy a lottery ticket, you're really going to win. To have money like that, where yesterday you didn't have money, today you have money.
And also that, it's just, if you haven't worked through your relationship with money, that's going to be scary. And now you can have everybody coming up for you wanting to be your friend and wanting to be connected to you that you may have never heard from in years. I think there's also just that relationship with money that needs to be worked on for everybody. Like when somebody says money is bad, no, it's not. You need money to survive, and you can use that money to help people. So money is neutral, and money is not good or bad. It's neutral, and it's how you view it. But part of that fear of success, and this is something I really learned, was it's your relationship with money too. That's a big part of it. Prosperity and money.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you. So you literally wrote the book about self-doubt in performers. And I actually believe that this is universal. You're getting rejected over and over again. How do you suggest handling that? It could even be somebody who is, the job market, for instance, in tech right now is pretty brutal, right? So a lot of qualified people are not getting jobs, right? Performers go to audition, they're getting rejected all the time. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's the life of a performer. Like I said, it's a very exciting industry, but it's also extremely brutal. There's a lot of competition out there. So no matter how talented you are, you're going to get more no's than yeses. And you're going to get more doors shut than open. That's the reality of it. And the one, I would say, way to soften the blow is not take it personally. That's the biggest thing. So I use the gentle reframe. There's no such thing as rejection. Look at it as a message that your services are not needed today.
Okay, I like that. Your services are not needed today.
Yeah. And when you say it that way, first of all, it externalizes it, number one. And it doesn't mean no permanently. It just means today. Okay, so tomorrow could be another story. Next week could be another story. So the important thing is to be persistent and to keep going.
And I think that can sometimes be difficult, and it is what separates success oftentimes.
100%.
Yeah. Are you willing to keep going and keep learning and keep doing and keep networking? One podcast guest talked about walking dogs as she was getting her business going and feeling some kind of way about what that felt like for her, given her level of education and so forth. And I think she really was able to level set for herself. A friend said to her, "Do you like doing it?" And she said, "Yeah, I love doing it." She's like, "Then what's the problem here?"
Yeah, and that's fear. You really want to do it, but then there's lack of action or just holding yourself back in this factor. So I think that's a part of it too. It's just you're holding yourself back. What fear is stopping you? You say you love what you're doing. What's stopping you? It could be previous rejection, being told no, and that's fear of what if I'm told no again? And the one way to get over it by taking action. That's the biggest thing too. Not looking at things as someday I'll do this or someday I'll do that. No, take action.
And I think it also goes back to being willing to be vulnerable enough to ask for feedback.
100%.
And when you talked about being in networking relationship with other people who do what you do, oftentimes they are the best people to be able to give you feedback about what you're doing. But you need to be brave enough to ask the question.
I need to hear the message.
Exactly.
We can talk about it from the coaching perspective. A lot of people are not ready to be coached yet because they expect, I'm going to sign up for a coaching program, but then I expect to be told I'm doing everything correct. And I expect to be told what I want to hear. And that might not be true. And I think the important thing is look at it like feedback, not criticism. So for me, I'm not a big fan of the phrase constructive criticism because I feel like we always get defensive when it's like, can I agree with a criticism? No, I don't want to do that. But if I turn around and say, can I offer some helpful feedback? Aha. Now I want to hear that because now what that means is you have something to say and you have that expertise. That's why it's important for actors to keep themselves in classes all the time and train. Right. So I never talk about this in my book. You have to be coachable.
Right.
And what's successful in any industry, you have to be coachable.
Right. I would agree. What is really interesting to me, and this is definitely like a generational thing, this conversation never came up with our parents, but at least in my generation, it was do what I say. And there's no discussion about this, right?
Yeah.
But really interesting is that myself as a parent, I have 3 kids. If I heard from all 3 of my kids some complaint about me or my behavior, there is a part of it where you just want to say, this is not open for discussion. You will do what I say. I was the very rare parent that would really go back and say, listen, I got the same feedback from 3 very important people in my life here. There is something there that I need to look at about myself. And also, too, I have been married as of last week, 40 years. We just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. And I can recall, it doesn't really come up so much now, but I can recall at different times in our relationship where my husband would give me some quote unquote constructive feedback. Initially, my first thing was, I didn't like the way you said that, right? And I would react to that. But as I got to be a more skilled coach, I was like, just because I didn't like the way he said it does not actually mean that it wasn't an important message. And so sometimes we have to just buck up. It's not okay for people to be rude, and there's definitely a line, but just because you didn't like the way it was said does not excuse you from hearing the feedback.
And that's when you take a step back and say, okay, am I reacting to something that wasn't even there? So look at the message. And even sometimes in my harsh interactions, when I've gotten some harsh criticism coming from the coaching perspective, after getting this thing wore off, I said to myself, that message could have been delivered maybe better. However, the message, they weren't wrong at all. And this is helpful. So I think if you look at it like from that perspective and start saying, okay, maybe their delivery was wrong, or maybe I heard it the wrong way too. And maybe I was overreacting.
Right. And I think also, Albert, at least in my experience, so many people spend so much energy on the other person and their anger and their feelings around that they never get to the part that was actually about themselves.
Yes. It's 100% on that too. It's all about how you view yourself in that sense and how that comes across.
I'm not giving anybody carte blanche to be rude. I think there's definitely a better way to give feedback. But if you get feedback that hurts your feelings, you got to step back from it. You can't control all the things that happen to you. The only thing you can control is what your experience of it is.
Exactly. And what your own interpretation is. And even if you find yourself getting feelings that are offended, even take a step back and think, okay, what's really going on here? Sometimes we can get offended, and maybe there was some truth to that statement that the person said that we feel that resonated with us. And there's a part of you that maybe you say you're right with that. We may not want to admit that. So take a step back and first look at the message. Isolate the message itself. Forget about the way it was told, the way it was said. Look at the exact message, the words. Because very often you may find I blew this way out of proportion. This was not really meant to be malicious or anything. This was meant to be helpful.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Just one more great coaching tip, which is what I suggest that my clients do when they get super triggered. Because once you get triggered, that like fight or flight starts to get up and you are no longer listening. Like you heard the one thing and you haven't heard anything else after that, right? Because you've stopped listening. So my tip for you is when you get super triggered by a phrase that somebody says, what you say to them is, say more about that.
What made you say that? Or that's interesting. Why did you say that? It's a disarming statement, and more of a conversation can come out of that. Then that person may be just a little disarmed too, and then okay, now we can have a conversation on this.
And you're also checking for understanding, right? But super triggered, your story is totally playing out on whatever it is that they said. Let's just actually check to figure out what they actually meant.
Exactly. And then you react on that. And
exactly.
A lot of times you'd be surprised about what you think they said and what they actually said can be completely different things.
Exactly. And then, you know what the other great phrase that I like to use is, this is what my experience of that was. Because listen, they either meant it that way or they didn't mean it that way, and they can correct that. But nobody can argue with your experience. Your experience is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I want to just end here because we have just had a fabulous conversation. There's so many gems here, I think, for everybody to really be able to pick up on, and I think it will be helpful. I want to just end by asking you, what's one unconventional habit or mindset that's helped you grow your business? You've been in business for a long time.
Unconventional, again, probably what I mentioned earlier about surrounding yourself with people in similar profession, in a similar business, exactly what you do, and develop that community and ask them for advice. In my experiences, they will give it to you. They will tell you, they will work with you. Get a mentor too. And don't assume you always have it together. And also understand that the most successful people may not always have it together.
And I think when you put other people up on a pedestal, you don't allow them to be human, right? All we have to do is look at social media to understand that. Like when any famous person actually acts like a person, right? Then that's headline news. Not that there aren't bad actors. Oh, look at that. Bad actors. There aren't bad actors out there.
Of course. And that happens sometimes.
But I do think that the ability to understand that everybody's got their stuff, right? Really to be able to look to your mentors and understand that you've also got to have enough confidence in yourself to make good decisions for you.
Yes, you need that confidence in a sense.
Yeah. Albert, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has just been a really informative conversation that really bridges, I think, the divide between what a performing artist may go through and a business person may go through. And I think there's a lot to learn.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'd like to again for having me. I'm totally happy.
Yeah. All right, friend, this is Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom, where cliches come to retire and fresh thinking we inspire. Yeah, if you liked it, share it, review it, subscribe. You know, all the good stuff that you need to do here. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye for now. Oh, go out there and be a better human.
Cliches retire, we set them free. Shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.